Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining me for Where I'm From 43 with Heather Frese. 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 I asked her. And what I'm reading or have read is her book, The Baddest Girl on the Planet, which I enjoyed very much and is a novel about the baddest girl on the planet, Evie, and her adventures. She's most definitely not the baddest girl on the planet, but I think the notion of what we tell ourselves and how it affects our lives and how it unfolds. Hello.
Hi.
Hi. I was just talking about your book that I
Woo!
loved.
That's it. Oh, good.
Yeah. Yeah, I was saying she is certainly not the baddest girl on the planet, but she's been told she is, and how what we're told about ourselves and what we tell ourselves can definitely affect the way our life unfolds. And I think the book
Yes.
explores that really wonderfully.
Yeah, I think that was the interesting thing to me is how she believes
Yeah.
believes the stories about herself and how that affects who she becomes. Yeah.
Yeah, that we totally internalize those messages and they
Yeah.
do affect our opinions of ourselves, unfortunately.
Right.
So, and Cassie just started reading it. Wonderful,
Oh, yay.
Cassie.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
So
awesome.
I thought it was, and all of the, I don't think this is a spoiler, all of the language of her being like easy or, those kinds of, how, just casually those words are thrown around when
Yeah.
it comes to women and their ability to enjoy sex, and that
Yeah.
that makes
Yeah.
them somehow compromised.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought that rang so true for me, and
Yeah.
how it's weaponized. Obviously, our enjoyment is weaponized against ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. It always is. Like the whole I don't know, believing what we're told about ourselves. There's a whole big overarching system there that's you know
Yes.
putting that stuff
Yes.
into place and keeping it there for other people's benefits, not ours.
Yes. Yes. So I really enjoyed it. And thank you for
Yeah.
joining me. I'm excited for you. Oh, did the gardeners just show up? I don't think so, but perhaps something loud did. And how are you? Anything you want to say before you read your poem?
No, I'm okay. I'm good. I'm good. I'm excited about this. The whole project is really interesting and fun, and I think the form and the workshop that we did with Janine
Yes.
was really
So
special.
were
Like
we in the same one?
I can't remember. I don't know. I know we
So
did.
did you do it through University of Minnesota?
Yeah.
Okay, so we were maybe we were in a different cohort because I don't feel like I
I,
remember you
I
from
I
that.
like screwed up the technology when it came to breakout rooms, and I didn't break out with anybody, and then I like so I'm not sure what I was with.
You broke out by yourself
Broke out by myself,
and
wrote my poem.
well, you wrote your poem, which since I did break out with someone, did not write my poem.
Yeah.
Ended up talking to the person and then heard her poem, and she's going to join
Yeah.
me in a few months. And I was so blown away by everyone's poems.
Yeah, I thought they were really special, and I think it's sort of
Yeah.
the being directed to that specificity, like this certain, like
Mhm.
this image and this,
Mhm.
you know, what was it? It had to be like I don't. It wasn't
Well,
color,
like
but it
smells
was
and
scent.
names,
Yeah,
and yeah,
yeah,
and like like some kind of family history
yeah,
piece. Yeah, what I've shared her before, but it definitely pushed me to incorporate things and details that I might normally stray away from and think,
yeah,
oh, that's not really significant, or that's not really how I express myself. So I enjoyed the push of do
yeah.
these things.
I did too. I thought that was interesting, and
Yeah.
I'm not like a poet typically. I mean,
Me neither.
but this was yeah, and I think I heard you talking more about like it tends to be like more like little nonfiction, a
Yeah.
little tiny little essay
Yes. Micro,
slash
micro.
poem. Yeah,
Yeah.
micro, teeny teeny.
Hmm.
But yeah, I thought it was a really fun exercise and really interesting
Yeah.
workshop.
Thanks for reaching out and saying you had written one. I think a lot of
Yeah,
people have them hiding away in there.
yeah,
I was like, had you known about it before? Because I was completely new to it. I was like,
the
I have
poem.
no idea the prompts, any of it. I was like
No,
a
no.
cat. I'd never heard of it. I was
Yeah,
like,
no, I was completely new to it too.
okay, good. So
Completely
I wasn't alone.
surprised.
Because I feel like I brought it up to numerous people, like especially at the beginning when I was like, oh, there's
Hmm.
this poem, and they're like, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah.
We know that poem
Oh
and
yeah.
those prompts. Like, oh, well, it's new to me.
It was good.
And I was So thank you for helping me know I'm not alone.
Yeah, no, it wasn't just you.
Okay, well, if there's nothing else, then go for it.
All right, so this is where I'm from. I am from Cedar Closets, from Sun Inn and Orange Cheeto Dust. I am from the covered bridge in the park, paint worn, children rolling in the green grass underneath. I am from the honeysuckle wafting along the rail trail, whose golden sweet tendrils I remember as if they were my own. I am from Sunday morning tennis matches, holding service on the court. From Otto and Edna, Paul and Geraldine. I am from the empaths and the artists and the man who put out fires. From you can't push a rope, but you sure can pull it. And close the door, we don't need to air condition all of Edgeworth Edition. I'm from the tallest steeple in town on the Methodist Church, First United. From the Alps and the moors. From meatloaf suppers and homemade purple icy slush. From the Concord grapes on my grandpa's trellis. I'm from the woman who laundered the rich man's clothes, so wet they steamed and steamed. In a closet in Ohio, not a cedar one anymore. In plastic boxes and Rubbermaids, my pigtails yellow in the photos, scattering me across time.
I want some of that homemade grape slush. That
Oh,
was
it was
my...
so good. It was so good. I picked the grapes off the trellis, and my mom would take them home and with the slush, just like grapes and ice and sugar. Oh, it was so good.
Yeah, that's the kind of a childhood dream of. I grew up sort of in not a place where there was fruit growing all over, so that would be like a childhood wish fulfillment of mine, that you could like pick something, make it into something, and
Yeah,
it's delicious and filled with like love and
yeah,
nostalgia and all those things.
yeah, exactly. My grandpa had this huge garden in the back of his house. They've been farmers originally out, like kind of more out in the countryside, and then they moved into the big city, which was our small town, our small our small rural town in Ohio, where he was a fireman. But he kept this huge garden in the back. He would grow, tomatoes and green beans, like everything. It was pretty
I
mountain.
love that. We had a friend we would visit hours away from us that we would visit every summer, and they had a garden. Like, she was first generation American, and she was grew up generationally farming, and she was like the most amazing garden. And I fantasized someday I would have a garden. And then I have tried to have a garden. It is a lot of work.
So like I was watering ours just now, and I'm so irritated by it. It's a box, like it's not a garden.
Yeah, same. Yeah.
But I'm so annoyed because I'm watering these stupid tomatoes every single day, and I've got, I don't know, 3 or 4 tomatoes, and they take up.
Yeah. Like, oh wow, I'm not. Listen, like, I will enjoy visiting yours, whoever you are, if you'd like me to come visit your garden. I am a very grateful observer and ingester of a garden, but
Yeah.
I realize, no, I like my houseplants. Like, I like having some plants around. I do like that, but I am not, because as you know, you're a mother and all the things, and you can't do it all.
You can't do
And
it.
something's got to go. And it was the garden. That's the thing.
Like, say goodbye. Yeah.
The thing that's said.
Just a couple of pots, like maybe a pot, one little pot of tomatoes. I feel a little less grumpy about it, but like a whole long stretch of it, and like I'm trying to keep it. Like the strawberry plant is growing fine, but like there aren't any strawberries on it. I'm just like,
and the bugs eat them half the time. At least in my strawberries, it's like the timing of getting them before the things on the ground get them. I haven't mastered.
Yeah, no, one strawberry is just like.
Yeah. So, well, it's beautiful though, and I love it. And I also love that as a child, you have no awareness of all that. It's just like, oh, there's grapes here. Like, I don't know what happened with that grape arbor. You didn't know. You just had the grapes.
Yeah. It's just like, it's so interesting. It's like that's your worldview, and that's what you know, and that's the only thing you know. And it takes so many years to figure out the history and all the alternatives and everything. Where you came from, and it takes like so much figuring that out. And especially
your book was so much about that too. It was interesting for me reading it because it had such a strong sense of place, and where she came from is completely tied up in her identity, which I think is probably true for all of us, but it's explicit in your book. Like, that connection.
Using that, exploiting that for as much as they could with the place is so interesting. Like it's and Barrier Island in North Carolina. It's so isolated and so much history and so much
Mm-hmm.
ecology and the biology of it and the science, and it's just so ripe for metaphor, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just I don't know, so interesting. So yeah, definitely doing that deliberately, like
Okay.
there for a
Yes.
different place. But yeah, I think we're all tied to and influenced from the place that we're from.
I think so. And obviously in varying degrees. And then I think obviously a small town lives large in our collective imaginations. And I didn't have that experience, so I can't speak to it, but it does feel like, oh, that's a very specific and meaningful place to be from
Yeah,
because of how everyone knows each other and because of the intergenerationality of the place. And
yeah,
um, that it does loom large in my imagination. Yeah.
yeah. Interesting. I think about that because like I live in Raleigh, North Carolina right
Right.
now. And it's a metropolitan area. Yeah, sort of like a kind of like a big small town. Like it's definitely interconnected, and there's definitely
Well, there's a university there, right? I
uh,
mean, Raleigh Durham has the university, right? So then that has that layer of
mm-hmm.
the coming. I went to high school in Boulder, Colorado, so
Oh,
similarly, the University of Colorado is there, and so you have this huge influx of inhabitants, and then they
yeah, that's
leave. And
like the grad school in Athens, Ohio, and like it's
yeah.
it's so different in the summer, and
Oh
like
yeah.
yeah, the students coming and going. I think that's so fascinating too.
Well, and you
Yeah,
always sort of feel like they're kind of like, which I thought was true in your book as well. Everyone seems kind of surprised that someone lives there.
yeah, right, yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
It's a
like,
whole
oh, you live here?
you live
Yeah,
here.
I go to high school here. Wow.
Yeah, right. It's so different. It's like yeah, I don't know. I think about like the difference between the small town and like living in a city, and like how I don't know, like my kids are gonna have this completely different experience, and like they go back and visit the small town in Ohio, but like they're from the city, and like I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Think about some
Well, you'll have to, they'll do poems, they'll write poems and they'll tell you
right.
about where they're from. And it'll be interesting to me, like, it's interesting what and how they remember
Yeah.
even now. I mean, my kids are not, I have a teenager and a tween, but just even what they remember of the times that have passed and what I remember, it's interesting. And I do want to say one other, I mean, I loved your poem. I want to say one other thing. You can, you can't push a rope, but you can pull it.
Yeah.
I've never heard that before, and I really like it. Gave me pause. Like, so does that mean work hard?
That was one of my dad's things. So you can't push the rope. So if you got a rope, you're trying to move
Like,
it.
so don't
You
push it, but pull it. I was like really trying to
pull it.
unpack. Like, what is this
Yeah.
teaching me? What is it teaching you? What is it teaching us? What is it saying?
So I take it as like you have to like do something the right way. Like you can
Okay.
want a certain outcome.
Mm-hmm.
You can't be trying to push the rope to get the outcome.
Okay,
Pull
that
it.
makes sense. So oftentimes with these sayings, I realize hearing them out of context, the context really does matter.
Right.
Lots of times the context is what explains to us what this thing that's oft repeated means,
Right.
which
Yeah.
is funny because there's an implication that these things are inherently meaningful, but oftentimes they are not.
Right.
You
Exactly.
know, it's like, can you give me a little more background? Are you a rope making family? Is there what I need to know more? So yeah, okay, that makes sense, and I
Yeah.
can I can see that being given as advice, particularly with people who might be frustrated with the way things work.
Yeah. Yeah. Like try it a different way. Like yeah,
Mm-hmm.
go about
Mm-hmm.
it. Go about it a different way because you can't. If it's not working, don't keep
Mm-hmm.
trying to push that rope.
I mean, it's a solid piece of advice.
Yeah, it really is. It really,
Yeah, I don't know who's trying to push the rope though. Like
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
questions about them.
Right.
Pushing rope. Wow. So, what was so you did it in this workshop, and then, so what was it like? Like, was it, you did it in the workshop, you broke the breakout room and were able to write it. Did you have to choose, a time and space, or did this just come organically? You didn't really have to give it much thought. Like, what was your
Yeah.
process?
The ones that it's one of the things that kind of came really quickly, and I just sort of, uh, you know, lots of times you like mull things over and over, and like, and I tend to write that way a lot, pretty slow and recursive. But this was one of those where it was like, oh, what's the scent? Oh, it was the cedar closets from my house then.
Mm-hmm.
First thing that popped into my mind, and then try to see how it kind of fit together. So yeah, it kind of came quickly,
That's fun.
which was nice and fun. Yeah, different.
It is fun.
Yeah.
When I was in the breakout room with Amy, that's who I was with, I was like throwing things out. It was at first like I didn't really know what we were supposed to. I didn't really fully understand how we were supposed to do it in a breakout room. Like
Yeah.
my brain couldn't make that make sense. So I was like pitching things like, "What about this food? What about this?" You know, she's like, "Those aren't my foods."
Right.
Um, but like ragu was my food. And I
Ragu.
realized, like, when I said a bunch of foods, one of them, like, ragu really resonated. Like, this is a food that it speaks to me. But it wasn't her food, you
Right.
know, even if we might have both eaten it.
Yeah, exactly. That's not what stuck with her. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and how I chased that flavor for so, you know, like how it's a very specific, like so much of childhood, we may compare subsequent experiences to that initial experience, and we may treat that initial experience as normal or
Yeah.
default.
Yeah.
When in fact it's just the experience we had, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. But it becomes like
Mm-hmm.
the core experience, right?
This is what spaghetti sauce tastes like.
Yeah. Exactly.
This.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
We had a bakery in town. It was like one of my best friends growing up. It was his dad's bakery. So it was our hometown bakery, but like that's what a bakery smells like. Like that's what white cake should taste like, you know? It's still like I'm still chasing that. Like, like it's still there. It doesn't taste the same.
White cake actually has an, I think, as a person who doesn't enjoy cake, I think white cake has it in many different flavors.
Yeah, yeah.
Because for a long time I was like, maybe I'll like this one. Maybe I'll like this one. I'm not gonna like it. So I've let it go. I don't like cake. For some people that's a personality flaw, but for me it's okay. It made birthdays a little awkward, but
right.
like, oh, I get cake on my birthday. Great. I don't like that.
Birthday pie.
Birthday ice cream. Birthday ice cream pie from 31 Flavors was like the ultimate in my birthday celebrations.
Yeah. That sounds pretty.
It's good. For me, if it's not ice cream, it's not. Like my kids literally make fun of me for it. Like, we know you like ice cream, just like people like other things. But I would like the grape slushy.
Yeah, the grape slushy was amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. And just, I think picking, that is also something that I got to do when I visited cousins, and still is something that is kind of magical to me, like picking your own fruit. And that it grows there. And I don't know. It's just.
Like it grows there and then
It's just there.
Eat it. And
waiting for you.
Part of you. Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's see. What age were you? Someone asked me this in the last, who was the last person? Oh, geez, my brain. Sorry, it's been a very long day. The last poem, she asked, what do you think there's an average age of people who, like, when they write this, what is the age they are? Did you feel like you were an age when you were writing this?
Oh,
like your narrator. Aha. I've given you a brain teaser.
Yeah, no.
Melissa.
I don't know. Maybe like eight-ish.
Mm-hmm.
Like 8. Think about the rolling down in the grass under the covered bridge, and yeah, the slushies are about that time. It's the cedar closets. I wouldn't have had sun in at that age. I would have been more like 13.
Sun in. A few people have had sun in. Did it turn your hair blonde, or did it turn it another interesting shade?
So sun in was like, sun in worked.
It worked for you.
Or my hair blonde, and like it was nice. When I was like, that awkward teen tween years where like, I wasn't cute little blonde anymore. It started to turn darker, and like, but the sun in brought it back. Like, yeah, the sun in worked for me.
Yeah, I had some blonde in my hair when I was a kid, and it was a real rude awakening. I moved away from California, and I went through puberty, and my hair looked like this. And I was like, wow, I can't really even sell it at all. Like, no matter how much lemon I put in my hair, or sun in, or it's dark brown. That's what it is. It's funny how, I mean, it's related to lots of political things, but how we kind of, blonde hair is
Yeah.
something that particularly in our, I think, generation and
Yeah.
older was like the thing.
It was,
Um,
yeah, exactly. And it was like, California girls were the thing when I was a kid.
mhm.
Like
Yes.
Valley Twins and Sweet Valley High, like
Yeah.
that
The
one.
Wakefield twins.
The
Um,
Wakefield Twins.
yeah. And when I moved to Colorado from California when I was 14, like people didn't believe me that I was from California because my
Uh,
hair looked like this.
yeah, you weren't
It's like,
California.
mhm. I'm like, I was born there. Like, I lived on the beach. And they were just like, sure.
Right.
Yeah. So, anything else about your poem or your process or your life or your writing? What are you working on, Heather?
Oh, yeah. So right now I'm kind of in a lull in summer
I
because
mean, you just also released a book not long
I released
ago.
a book in 2021, and then this past school year where I was the first time I had all three kids in school at a like
Oh, yay.
person
Actual school,
actual school,
not Zoom school.
so I had like 3 mornings a week. So revised I revised a book
Oh, that's
during
great.
those mornings a week. So I finished it just like I almost finished it before the kids were out of school, and I didn't hit the deadline. I had to call in like some help for the last I really
Hmm.
friend. I was like, I need like I need 2 more mornings. Like, can you take one kid? The big ones were
That's
still.
really close. I mean,
It,
2 more mornings.
I did it. I did it,
Yeah.
but like yeah, it was kind of tight. Like I could have if I had
Had more
taken
time.
one less thing, I could have gotten it done, but I didn't. And then
Yeah.
there, the kids get sick, and the kids have their
Yes. So you finished a book, is what you're saying. You have
book.
finished a book,
I
another
have
book.
a book.
Congratulations.
It's out. Yeah, it's going on submission
Okay.
now ish. Yeah, like so,
Summer is so hard. Are you going on submission now or later?
now, like right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just feel like the pace of submissions is even slower. Like, it's just like, at least these are from things people are telling me, not from my personal experience, because I don't have anything on submission. But just like, it feels like things are just glacial,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
The whole process is glacial.
Yeah. Yeah.
The
I
writing,
said, oh, yeah.
all of it is just like it's it's just its own entity. It really is.
Hmm.
So that's done.
Well,
That book.
congratulations. Wishing you so much
Thank
luck.
you. Yeah, fingers crossed. And now like I'm trying to like I know sort of what I want to do next. Sort of, but I don't
Mhm.
have it. I haven't actually started writing it, so I'm like trying in my head to get the wheels turning so that when they go back to school I'll have a few mornings to them. That's when I'm gonna have to like sit down and actually start writing it. So that's where I am now, like writing in my head.
I think that, yeah, I do a lot of that. I
Yeah,
think especially when you have kids. I've always done a lot of that, but I think especially when you're split in a lot of different directions, it's
yeah,
just the natural course of things because you can't be like, hold on,
right.
I have an idea. It's like I have to hold it in my head, or I'll send myself a voice memo sometimes because I'll be like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to remember this, honestly.
I,
Let's be real.
yeah, I text message myself.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah,
Um, so as a writer, I think for something that I struggle with, and I don't know if you do, but like giving yourself space to celebrate yourself that like you completed this thing and that's a huge accomplishment, but also this pressure to then what's next, what's next, what's next. Like, do you find that difficult to balance?
yeah, definitely. I think and especially as I get, I don't know, older, I guess I like feel like more, like I need to have
Do you feel more pressure?
been producing more. Yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
like I need to keep producing now that I have like now that I did get a book out, like I now
Mm-hmm.
like for the second one, and then like now it's like now this one I have to start from scratch on my own. Not in not in an MFA program, and like
Right. Right. You're not in a generative space, like a traditionally generative space. Yeah.
exactly, yeah, and in fact it's like an anti-generative space.
That's not very marketable. I have an anti-generative space for you to start your next novel. Best of luck.
Yeah,
Um, well, don't you might find it interesting too? This is also a thing that I have to like my self-talk. I'm working at, like how we tell ourselves like, oh, when I do this, like for you, your first novel,
yeah,
then I'll feel like, oh, check, first novel. And then you do it and you're like,
Yes, yeah.
first novel.
I'm just like, okay, that's done.
Yeah, and it's just like, oh, because I'm really trying. This is something I'm personally working on, so I'm talking about it. Like, I'm trying to let like good things permeate.
Yeah, yeah. I will say I did have like a really exciting and positive like experience releasing the first
I'm
book.
so
It,
glad, especially in COVID. I'm so happy to hear
yeah,
that.
it was all virtual. Like that part
Yeah,
stunk. I was like so looking forward to
yeah.
yeah. So then
Mhm.
I was like, I was gonna get to have a release party and it was gonna be like,
Mhm.
it's like a grown up birthday party and like
Mhm.
and like
And see
celebrate.
people, and like maybe go to a few cities where you know people and sign, and yeah, yeah,
It was like I had it planned out in my
yeah.
head, all figured out, and then it was
Mhm.
all virtual. But it was really special, and I did feel like I got to kind of hang on to
Good for
that
you.
experience. So it was like it was pretty magical. So it
I'm
did
so happy to hear that because I know COVID really derailed a lot of people's
it derailed.
creative
Yeah,
lives and everything.
everything. God, it was something. We're still in it. Like, how are we still in it?
We are still in it, and it's also like this summer has felt really for me like trying to jam so many things in that I hadn't done before,
Yeah,
trying to find equilibrium, trying to still it's not easy.
yeah,
And now we're going back to school, and at least here this is sort of the first year where everything's sort of normal.
yeah.
And I
True.
really use quotation marks with that because it's not.
It's
Uh,
yeah,
but you can tell everyone's kind of like, oh, hey, where are we? What's going on? There aren't enough people to do the jobs that need to be done as usual.
oh, yeah, true.
And you just feel how much pressure they have on them. And,
Yeah, yeah. It's this weird. We're still in this
mm-hmm,
weird gray area where
mm-hmm,
I don't know. And like my littlest one just a couple weeks ago was able to get his vaccine, so it's like
it's a
way
big deal.
like it. People started moving on.
I know. But I have other friends with young children, and I
Yeah,
know even though my children are older, I remember that
yeah,
feeling of like,
yeah, yeah,
and then when we got it this late spring, like so many people did, it was such a relief to like know that everyone was vaccinated. And, there
yeah.
was some peace of mind in there, even though it was not ideal. It was very
Right.
different than it had been 2 years before.
Yeah, yeah. It's all constantly changing.
It is. And there are gifts like this and all these Zoom ways that I've interacted, and it has really grown my writing community and it's grown my creative life because I needed it to survive.
Yes, yeah. Me too. And I get it did sort of feel because like I hadn't like I would I'd been in like hardcore mom mode for years. Like I hadn't attended like I tried when like my oldest when we moved to Raleigh and my oldest son was a baby, like I tried to attend events on campus at NC State and like it just ended up me chasing the baby around. I gave up after a
Mm-hmm.
while. Um, so yeah, having the Zoom events and stuff made me really reconnect in a way that I hadn't been able to
Yeah.
before. That was really nice.
Yeah.
Was one benefit.
Mm-hmm. I felt that, and I still feel it because now we just accept it as
Yeah,
acceptable as a normal. Like, oh, this is a completely okay way to interact with people and have conversations, and so I am
yeah,
grateful for that. And the creative collaboration that's grown out of that as well. I don't need to collaborate with people who live in my neighborhood.
yeah, yeah. Exactly. Yeah, it's been that part's been really special, and like it's like led to the workshop that we did, like the narrative
Yeah.
medicine. It
Yes.
all connects together.
Tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
There's one tomorrow.
One smart. Oh, I haven't signed up for one recently.
I'll send you the information. Well, any last thoughts before we close up? Close out?
I
Finish up?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. This has such been it's such a special project. I think it's really interesting and the whole I love like I don't know thinking about the narrative medicine and how like important it is to like tell our stories within that context and then reaching back especially the structure of this poem and the framework there and how I don't know sort of brings up the for me at least the sort of intergenerationality of
Mm,
ourselves and even for me how that relates to narrative medicine and my experience within the medical framework and how, you know, the history of my family impacts, you know, how I experience that and what I need to do differently or, you know, change in that context. So yeah, it's just, I think it's a neat project, and I'm really glad you started and continued it.
I am grateful to be doing it. And I think this project and then the workshops we're talking about have really helped me
Mm-hmm.
advocate for myself and my loved ones in that setting,
Yeah.
particularly.
Mm-hmm.
It's had a lot of value just to sit with the idea of telling our stories as a way to advocate for ourselves. Like
Yeah.
just that concept in and of itself can be really game changing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 'cause the medical world is really dehumanizing in so many ways. And I just feel like, yeah, I grew up, I had a chronic illness, so it's just like years of medical gaslighting, and it's nice to think of a different approach and how, you know, hopefully on the other side of it, the flip side of it, they're working on this too a little bit, so that they're maybe being trained to listen to people, and where you're being trained to advocate for ourselves, you know, through our stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you read An Invisible Kingdom?
It
Okay.
Oh,
I strongly recommend. It was so incredible. I thought it was so well done, and
yeah,
a lot of friends with chronic illness, and
yeah,
it helped me have a deeper understanding of their experiences. So
yeah,
so it was worthwhile, really worthwhile for me.
yeah. I need to read it. I spoke with her assistant while she was writing the book, and this was
Mm-hmm.
years ago, because I think it reached out in one of the binders, and I was like, oh yeah, I have experience with that. So I don't know. I don't think my story made it into the book, but I know she talked about it.
She did so much research.
So much research.
Mm-hmm.
That was in like 2014, and my
Yeah.
daughter was a baby.
Mm-hmm.
But
Makes
yeah,
you think about how long it takes to write a book of that nature.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it's beautiful, and she articulated this concept of living at the edge of medical knowledge, and for me that was so useful to have words for what so many of my friends are going through.
Yeah, yeah. And it's sort of becoming like with COVID and long COVID, like we're
Yep.
starting to have a language for it and have like a reference point for these diseases that, you know, you don't die and you don't get better, which I think for the longest time, for years and years, like that just wasn't, you know, on my radar, like that could be a thing. And it wasn't until
No, and
years ago.
they tell you it's psychosomatic
They tell you it's
so
like
oftentimes.
like over and over and over again. Like
Yeah,
I you know,
you just need to get a positive attitude, Heather, and it'll all work itself out.
yeah,
You can't push a rope, but you can pull it.
I can't pull it.
Like all that toxic positivity, which we didn't have that word, but
Yeah,
that concept of just like willing away sickness with your brain
with your
is
brain,
just it's so destructive and
which is
painful for people who are suffering, because then
yeah.
they're constantly hearing that from people, like,
Oh,
and she does a really good job of that too. Like, I
yeah.
really don't need to hear your mumbo jumbo.
Yes.
I've tried it.
Right.
Whatever it is, I've tried it. Trust
Yeah.
me, I don't want to live like this either.
Right.
Like, I know this is inconvenient for you because we're talking about it for 30 minutes, but this is my life. It's far more inconvenient for me.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So I thought I'm sure you have a long reading list and you have 3 children and you're writing another book. So it's a no pressure ask. It was just like, hey, if you've read it, good, right? But no pressure. One of my friends who lives with chronic illness is like, I would love to read it, right? I'm like, yes, I'm sorry. Yes, I know you would love to read it. I'm not trying to. She's like, it's not that I don't love the idea of reading it. I just can't. Like, okay,
right.
I get it.
Yeah, that's another thing too. Gotten like I'm doing well. Like I'm right now. I'm like, can mostly live my life, and so a lot of it is we're just gonna push away those times, just gonna push away that memories and not
You
address.
don't need to go there.
No,
You've been there. You don't need to read a book about it. It was good for me to read a book about it. You don't need to
read the book about it though.
You lived it.
I did. Yeah, I did. I lived it. But
I feel that way with certain books. I'm like, that sounds great. I'm not reading that.
I will.
This is a really powerful book to me that I'm never going to read. So it's That's totally fine. And I've gotten much better at saying that, where you used to always be like, yeah, that sounds like a great book and I should read it. And I'm just like, nope, I'm going to do it. Well, this has been a pleasure. Thank you for joining me. Congratulations on the baddest girl on the planet. On
Thank
the
you.
planet. I always worry I'm going to whiff people's titles. And best of luck with your book out on submission.
Thank you.
I am sending good vibes, and I look forward to reading it. And have a lovely evening.
All right, you too. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, bye, Heather.
Bye.